Hi everybody, Sean Holsinger here from holsingersflyshop.com. Today I'm going to give you just a quick brief overview on wet fly fishing. That's something I was taught to do whenever I first started fishing. It's the first way I learned to fish actually, swinging wet flies through the nice riffles. Catches a lot of fish that way. It's kind of a forgotten art form that needs to be brought back and not overlooked. Pretty simple way to fish. Real simple actually. We're going to fish with a 9-foot leader. In Pennsylvania we're allowed to fish with as many flies as we want on the leader. We're fishing with 3. What we're going to do, we're going to come down the leader about halfway, a little bit better than halfway, and we're going to tie a dropper on. What we're doing is tying a blood knot, and when you tie the blood knot you have the 2 tag ends. We're going to leave one really long, which is going to give you about a 6-inch dropper on there. Then we're going to come down the line about 2 foot or so. We're going to tie another one on, and then we're going to tie another wet fly onto the butt of that. I fish a lot of times I fish 3 wet flies when I'm fishing my leader. It's just more chance of getting them. And when I fish it, right now we have 3 different hatches coming off on the creek. We have a little black stonefly coming off, and not that many. But for that, I'm fishing my Kelly's Krennic on the top. That's my little black stonefly pattern. And then I'm going to come down and I'm fishing golden pheasant tail wet. Right now, if you can see behind me in the air here, there's tons of tan caddis flying around. I'm fishing just a very small 16 golden pheasant tail wet. And then at the bottom, I'm just fishing a generic hare's ear. Just a generic pattern to have on there to fish with. It catches fish any time of the year. It's a really, really simple way to fish, and like I said, I don't want people to overlook it because it catches fish. When you're seeing fish, 90% of the time, fish are feeding underwater. Only 10% of the time you're seeing them feeding on the top. So we want to cover that 90% more effectively. And what we're going to do, you'll see sometimes, and this will also work during the times when they're feeding on the top. You see one feeding on the top, you have the wet flies on, just swing it right past them. Good chance you're going to hook into them if you're matching the hatch on them. So I'm going to take you to the creek now, show you a couple casts. Very simple. All you need is like just your standard overhand cast and a roll cast. You don't want to do nothing fancy here. Just really simple basic fishing. And we're going to show you casting and working the currents, where you want to be situated for the different currents to be most effective swinging your flies. In the creek, this is Kettle Creek we're fishing here today. It's a north central Pennsylvania stream. Really, really nice freestone stream, good hatches. Has hatches almost all through the summer there. Some really big ones. You got your green drakes, your Hendricksons, just the normal ones you're after. Fun stream to fish. We come up and fish this every year. One of my favorite things to do here is wet fly fish. Reason why I like the wet fly fish is if you look at this stream behind us and all around us here, the size of the stream. With wet fly fishing, you can cover a ton of water. And like I said, this is a very, very simple technique to do. All we're going to do is we're covering a ton of water. We're swinging this fly through the current here. And when I was saying earlier about what we're going to show you is casting techniques. Just a normal, regular old overhand cast. But the important thing here is we want to mend a line. I'm going to show you that again real quick here. You're going to make your cast. We're going to down and across. When you lay it down, I want to put that little bend in the line to give your flies time to catch up with your fly line. And then we're going to fish this the whole way downstream. A lot of times right now is when I'm going to get my bite. Right at the end of the drift as the flies coming to the top. I'll get a lot of times right on the whip, right there. And then as it finishes out the drift, right in around this area, as it's starting to rise back up to the top like it's an emerger coming to the top. So I always let it drift clear to the bottom. Now I said there's 2 kinds of casts we're going to use here. One is your overhand cast like I've been doing. The other is a roll cast. Now as you see here right above me, I'm looking at trees. I'm coming in underneath these trees. Well, if I'm going to be fishing in here and I'm going to be making a cast, you always have to be conscious of what's behind you, what's around you. And you don't want to get stuck in the trees. You're wasting your fishing time. So to fish in these situations, like under this tree right here, I'm going to switch to a roll cast, which very simply, I'm going to lift my line up off the water, and then I'm going to lay it back down. It's a very, very simple, easy cast to learn. One of the first casts you should learn. You're going to nymph fish this way. I dry fly fish this way, getting in tight spots. Roll cast is a very basic casting that everybody needs to learn. And like I said, the most important thing here with wet fly fishing is working the current and always being, you don't want drag in your line. That's the most important part, to erase the drag from your line. To do that, you have to mend your line. I'll show you if I don't mend my line here, what happens. You see that big whip in your line. You see how it's swung and caught up to the line. Your fly is moving way faster than the current in that situation and is unrealistic to the trout. So you don't want that to happen. You're gonna cast it out, mend it over, get your fly line behind your leader, and then as you see, I'm keeping my rod tip up and I'm leading it through the drift. I don't want to face it right at the fly. If I face it right at the fly, you're not going to get a good hook set. You want to have an angle against the fish to get your hook set. So as I'm drifting it down through here, mending, drifting it, always leading, keeping my rod tip up. And when I get a bite, I'm not going to jerk the hook. We're not deep sea fishing. We're not yanking on them. We're fishing with a 4-pound or sometimes 2-pound tippet on the end there. So you don't want to be jerking the hook to set the hook. You're going to snap your tippet off. All you want to do, you get a bite down there like that, we just want to lift up on the rod. Lifting up on the rod is plenty enough to get the hook set on the fly. Like I said, simple, easy technique of fishing here. Now the next thing we're going to show you, I'm going to go to a different spot and I'm going to show you working against different currents. Sometimes you're going to have to be in an area where you're casting across the current to get into the drift that you want. Okay, the next thing I want to show you here is every stream has different currents throughout the stream. Now if you watch my line right there, I'm fishing, I want to fish this drift right where my line is at right now, where the point of my line is at. But I have a drift right here in between me that's going to whip my line out of place. So sometimes you can't get around that. You have to constantly be mending your line to keep the proper drift. You see what I'm doing there? To keep the drift working correctly. And then as I get out of the drift, then it catches up to where it needs to be. That's the most important thing with wet fly fishing, is keeping the proper drift. You do not want to whip that fly. Like I said earlier, if you see there's 3 different drifts right there in that drift. If you just let it go on its own, this is what you're looking at. Okay, and you saw how your fly leader whipped through that current right there. So to combat that, there's 2 ways. One is I'll try to keep my leader off the water, which will give me a real nice drift down through there. Keep your rod tip up. That's probably the best way if you can do that, but sometimes you're too far away. Sometimes you're too far away from that to get your rod tip up to effectively do that. So you have to continually mend this to keep it going. Oops. To keep it going where you want it, to keep it going with the current at a natural flow. That's the way you combat that problem, which is probably the most common problem with wet fly fishing, is battling the current. Okay. All right, the last thing I want to show you here is the proper setup for your drift. You always want to be on the inside curve when you have a stream like this one here. A lot of times your stream's curved, you hardly ever go straight the whole way. So you want to take the inside turn of your stream. You're going to get, if you're casting from the other side, you're not going to get a proper drift. It's not going to go where you need it to go. So like I said earlier, we want to stay on the inside, we want to keep our mend, and then we want to lead it down into the bottom. Down into the bottom of the drift, let it come to a stop, and make another cast. Quartering down and away from you on your cast, always mending. Very, very simple. Like I said, if you're casting from the other side, it's not going to drift the proper way and at the proper speed. So if you're coming to a turn, you always want to be on the inside, never the outside, and find yourself nice riffles for this. This is the kind of situation where this is a perfect run here for wet fly fishing right down through here. As always, Thanks again for watching. I'm Sean Holsinger from holsingersflyshop.com. If you like what you see here, don't forget to check us out on our website, holsingersflyshop.com. Like us and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel and like our Facebook. Whoops! I just missed one there while I was talking to you. That's why I said always leave it go to your end of your drift. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you liked it.